Hi, welcome to new Cube video. This is Pavel Savianko, and in this video I explain you another standard CubeGUI plugin, system topology. Let's do it. Okay, we are back into our terminal, and in this video I would present you another standard plugin of CubeGUI, system topology. So let's open Cube and open example of cube file, for example this one, and the point of interest in today's video is the system tree. So as you already know, being familiar with CubeGUI, that system tree describes our basically system on which measurement has been done, and as we see it is IBM Blue Gen Q. The measurement was run on some various of midplanes and maybe nodes. On every of this element we had 8 processes, and every process had 8 threads. So you see that the system tree has elements, and that's our basic unit, basically execution thread. And the relationship between all these elements is gathered in the form of tree, like in this display. But that's not only a relationship which is possible between these threads in this case, so basic elements of execution. As you maybe know, you should know that, for example, MPI standard allows user to define so-called MPI topology and assign coordinates to various processes so that one can capture a relationship, a neighborhood relationship between these various ranks. This relationship between these processes and threads is here displayed like these 8 threads belong to this process, these 8 threads belong to this process. That is also kind of two-dimensional relationship. As well, construction of the system itself defines so-called neighborhood. If the thread is running on, like for example this thread belongs to process 4, which has been running on this element, which is rec 63, midplane 1, node 0, 2, and with such probably coordinates. So communication between this process, this thread, and for example this thread probably requires multiple hops between the switches which connect this rec 63 and rec, well, that's the same rec, but here is a midplane display, the same midplane, the same node, but J0C, and here J00, whatever it is. So maybe connection between these elements is requires multiple hops, and maybe communication between this process and this process doesn't require multiple hops. So in this way one can define basically neighborhood relationship between the various processes based on the actual construction or actual connectivity of the system. So that's so-called hardware topology. And this plugin serves exactly this purpose. That is the way how to display this another relationship between our elements in the system tree than tree. So being said that, where one does find this plugin. So one finds it in a special tab, Topologies, on the right side. So if we, let's say, we collapse it here for the demonstration purpose, and we select Topology, we see here suddenly display, 3-dimensional display. So there are multiple things to mention. First of all, I would mention the controls. So as usual, one can zoom in, zoom out with mouse. If one holds Shift and grabs the topology and can move it left and right. And if one holds control and drags with mouse down, one increases space between the planes. And if one just grabs the topology, one rotates. All these operations basically are doubled here in a toolbar. So, like for example, here with this arrow left and right, we can move the topology in our view. The same is up and down. Well, actually, up it doesn't go anymore, but down. With this arrow, we expand the planes. Here we shrink the planes. So in this way we can basically get the whole topology in our display. With plus and minus we can zoom in and zoom out. Yeah, that we can do it also with the mouse. With this reset button, so like for example, if we did something, we click here, it gets to the default initial values. If we, for example, zoomed in with this button, we can scale to the window, yeah, basically. So with this button, we can define our coloring palette. This way, skip it, but basically we can use this gradient from the minimal and some maximum well-defined values, and everything besides of this, outside of this range, will be then grayed out. Okay, so that's basically the controls. And with X and Y, that is the angle under which we basically look at the planes. Okay, so that's our basic controls. So what's about this plugin? Now, first of all, we see here three topologies. In this cube file, three topologies are defined. So one is called BGQ hardware topology. So that is the topology which defines neighborhood relationship between some threads based on their connectivity in the system. We have a thread versus processes. So that is two-dimensional topology. One can zoom in and then see that there's basically 8 threads versus probably 400 or something processes. And we have MPI Cartesian topology, which has been defined within this program, and we see that it is one-dimensional topology. Okay, so let's take a look here. As it is a system tree display or system display, of course, every element here represents one element in the system tree. So if I select here this element and take a look in the system view, we see that this selection is here synchronized. So if I select here this element and take a look in topology, we see that this is somewhere there. So we have to expand these planes relatively large, and then we see that this selection is here. Yeah, so that is basically this threads is mapped on this element in this topology. Okay, let's reset it. Okay. What else is here important? Okay. Oops. So if we zoom out, we see that, for example, here is the planes are stretched, but here is the stretching is not anymore there. So if I select some element in the middle of topology, we see that this plugin opens up the topology. So it stretches the planes so far that this element, our selection, gets visible, and it squeezes this planes, other planes together, so that one can take a look inside. And if we take a look on a system tree, we see that this element has been selected. Yeah. Okay. So if we keep our mouse over this element, Okay, that's not a mouse, that's right mouse click. One gets information about this element, various information. So first of all, one sees the coordinates A, B, C, D, E, core ID and hardware thread ID. These are dimensions in this topology, and this element, thread 2 in a node R63, M1 and 02, J05 has coordinates like 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 6, 2. The name of this thread is thread 2. Yeah, the MPI rank is 187, thread ID is 2, the value of the metric time is 26 seconds and a half or something, and only one element mapped into these coordinates. So this display allows to map multiple system tree elements into the same coordinates, or opposite. One can map one coordinate, one system tree element like thread on multiple coordinates. So in this way, the display will be not anymore basically Cartesian. Okay, so that is basically this our values. And if you take a look at the neighbor elements, the coordinates are changing. Why they change and how they change? It's simple. We have actually to do here with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 dimensional topology, which we try to display in 3 dimensions to be to understand it. Therefore, we apply so-called folding. So along the x-axis, we display first A coordinate, then D coordinate, and then hardware thread ID. Along the y axis, we display B and E coordinates, and along the Z, so that's basically from plane to plane, is C and core ID. So, like for example, if we look at this plane, here is a C coordinate 1 and core ID 6. If we take a look at this element, here is the core ID 5 and C is still 1. And if we go here is core ID 4. So as far to the right in this display, we have as faster this dimension coordinate changes. So basically it changes core ID first, and then it changes C. And of course we can rearrange it, but this is in a minute. Being a display of system tree, of course, it uses the same coloring scheme like it is being used also in a system tree. So therefore this value display, which I have been describing in another video, will be valid also for the system topology. So if we take a look at peer distribution, so basically mapping of the value range from minimum to maximum on 0 to 100, we get very same coloring in this display, and we see, hopefully we see correlation between some coordinates and performance issue, in this case runtime. So we see that, for example, here is a cluster of rather high values here, and here is a rather low value, and here is the middle values. Whether it is related to the connectivity or whether it is a simple artifact of the display, one has to analyze and be careful, because we have here actually 7-dimensional topology, and we try to fold all dimensions together in order to be able to visualize it. So maybe that is the gathering together doesn't really display the neighborhood on actual system. So one has to be very careful. Okay, what about this folding and slicing? So as I already mentioned, if we have a multi-dimensional topology, more than 3, in order to be able to display it in our 3-dimensional manner, so how we got used to it, we can do 2 things actually. We can do slicing and we can do folding. So by folding, we actually map multiple dimension on one familiar for us dimension, x, y, and z. So, and here, for example, we map on X dimension, 3 dimension, AD and hardware ID. But what if I map hardware ID together with core ID? So like, let's move it here, and we get immediately another display. So we see that along the Z there is more data, more coordinates, and therefore the dimension is actually the topology is now very stretched down to the along the Z-axis. But we see that AB, AD, and BEA they have only two. Each of them only 2 elements. So then maybe we fold it a little bit different. We take A, B, C in one coordinate, like here, A, B, C, and D, E, and this dimension, and here, like that. So then we get this visualization where we along the Z-axis we get only core ID and hardware thread, and along the Y-axis we have DE, and along the X-axis A, B, C. So like here, for example, if we go, we see that A changes, and B. Here we get D and E, and along this axis we change actually only core ID and hardware. We see that, for example, we have the stripe of red or high values on along the C coordinate, and in both cases it is C01. So maybe we can gather it, put it together, and like maybe like this. So we see that we got together now coordinate B and C. Yeah, it's not trivial, as you you see that by shuffling together various coordinates, one might maybe get some idea what's going on. Here, for example, I display along the x-axis all 4 A, B, C, D dimensions, and core ID, oh maybe let's do it also, E, and core ID and hardware we do along the y-axis, so we got only 2-dimensional topology. So we see that here we have core ID, all core IDs which are 15 and 3 along from all possible basically nodes, and here we change core ID as well. So so we see that the higher values are related to the part of the system which is described by the coordinates by A and C up to the 0 and 1. So A, C, whereas C is 2 and 3 up to the and whereas the higher value of D, the values are actually minimal, and by higher value on E is again so in the middle. So whether it has something to do with broken connectivity, one has to know how actually these nodes are connected to each other. But in this way, one can get a grasp of what's going on with the measurement results and with the actual system. So that is how folding is working. So we are mapping basically multidimensional topology into the 3-dimensional or even 2-dimensional, as you see. What's about slice? So slice, as it says already, it takes multidimensional topology but fixes sum of the coordinates and leaves only 3 available, or 2 or 1, which is running. So in this way we basically slice the multidimensional topology and get only projection of part of it. So for example, in this case, so we get coordinates here. Let's put d. Let's do like this, So let's fix a coordinate and have the value 0. Let's fix coordinate b, take the value 1, and let's run over core ID and thread IDs. So, and then let's fix here as well coordinate 0. Here let's then take all zeros. So we see that for the case where all A, B, C, D, E have the value is 0, we can take a look what other core ID and hardware ID values are actually doing. So we can take a look only on a part of this 7-dimensional topology. We can take a look here on another slice, so where the A is actually 1. We can take a look at the slice where this D is 1. We can take a look on the slice where the E is 1, and so on and so on. And in this way we can explore multidimensional topology with our common, usual way of seeing things 3-dimensional, basically. We can also take a look, we can fix core ID, for example, and say, okay, we want to take a look at zeros core ID and 0 thread, but we will run over all A's and over all B's and over all C's. And we see that, for example, in this case, we see here A, B, C. So A is running along the X axis, so here. Along the Y axis, the B is running, and along the Z axis is the C is running actually. So in this way we can explore the multidimensional topology and get more or less grasp what's going on with our performance data. The same is valid, of course, with 2-dimensional topology, like this is threads versus processes. We have, of course, available only thread and processes, so less dimensions than 3, but we can combine them. We can display maybe like this. I don't know. Yeah, sometimes this really so that is like this basically, and with having such extreme cases, of course, it is difficult and to understand what is here. Yeah, or we can use it like this. So basically one can combine display in a way how it is most comfortable to analyze and to understand it. Special case is one-dimensional topologies, like in this case. Being one-dimensional, one will run out of screen place pretty soon and pretty fast. And especially if one zooms in, then one has only here, like for example, 1, 2, 3, 8 elements, of course, out of 4,000. One has no clue what's going on here. But one can help oneself by cutting this dimension and display it one next to each other. So as it is suggested here, split after n elements. So we have 8 threads or 8 processes, each 8 threads. So 64 elements per some hardware either this midplane or node. So let's cut it in 64 chunks, and then that is how we see how it is displayed. Then we see that here, for example, we have coordinate 0, which goes up to 64, and here is 64, and here is 65, and so on and so on. And one can get this one-dimensional topology displayed relatively compact. Again, one has to keep in mind that it is simply splices of the one-dimensional topology. Okay, these are basically basic elements what one can do here with this topology. Hopefully that is already understandable. Let's take a look at settings which are available for the user. Like, for example, for that we have to go into the menu plugins in the system topology, and we see here, for example, display settings and maybe some control settings. Like, for example, item coloring. Do we color some element if it is 0 as white, or we color only if all elements which are being mapped into this coordinate as a 0. Various situation, especially if one has such N-to-M mapping, and suddenly one element is 0, one would like to see it in the mapping, or one would like to see if all elements are 0, so that's basically opportunity to change. One can, of course, vary the color of the line, so in this case it's black, but we can put it, for example, gray, or white, or none. This is useful if one has multiple relatively large topology. Like, for example, if you take a look here and here, and we have many elements, these lines, this one pixel between the elements might take too much space, and that will be then too dark or black actually. So one can remove this line, and then one sees more smooth visualization of the topology. This toolbar, of course, one can have it as an icon, as a text, or at all, no toolbar. It's it depends what one prefers, how one controls. Sometimes one records, or Scorpio records topology and puts the coordinates into side of the topology which hasn't been actually used in a measurement. So then it is there will be such white element, and one doesn't want to see it, so one can switch it on or off. In this case, there is no such elements, therefore it is irrelevant. Always show the dimensional toolbars. In this case, it is not visible. One can select it. So if one take a look like this, like this, one can enable so-called anti-aliasing. One in modern displays it is barely visible, so therefore it is probably less relevant setting, at least now. And of course, if one has a three-dimensional display, like for example, let's do this, like this, so one can always zoom into current plane. If I select, it expands it so that one can see it, right? But if I disable it, then it doesn't expand the planes, so one might have selection, like for example, I don't know, this one, which is somewhere there. One should then rotate, and with care, and maybe somehow one will see this element which is actually selected. So, but not everybody likes this zooming into the topology, therefore it is switchable option. Okay, yeah, that's basically it. Hopefully you understand most of the controls of this plugin. It's standard plugin, and if it is not activated, then you have to take a look in this list. That is system topology, and if it should be checked in, and then it will be available. If there is no tab, then your cube file doesn't contain any topologies inside, and therefore there are no topologies to display. Okay, I hope you like this video. If you have any questions, please comment, give us a like, subscribe, and see you next time.